Welcome back to another Sensei Pongcast, a video game podcast that goes on tangents a lot and talks about the news, video games, and we do have a video game book club which we hold every month, or at least that's the deal, or well, it was for a while, and then like last month, I'll explain in a little bit, but don't worry about it. Anywho, yeah, stuff like that. New games coming up, industry news, things that are connected to games, board games, sometimes card games. Well, it's more like card games than sometimes board games, and maybe some cool toys or whatever. This is kind of a Christmas special, so expect some possibly Christmas-themed bumper music. We'll see. I have some ideas. I already know what I'm going to be doing for some of the bumper music, but I don't know how many times I'm going to be taking a break. I know I will be taking a break within the next hour, so, because I got to go to work. But yeah, that's about it. What's on the itinerary for this podcast is I'm going to be talking about a little bit of what I've been up to, why I've been kind of radio silent on both the channel and the podcast, but hopefully that clears things up. But on the good note, my new setup might actually be better than the last setup, so we'll see how that all plays out. Hopefully I can start creating more content again, kind of like what I did like maybe a year and a half ago, where I would actually create lots of content. I've been getting a couple comments from people on the channel and just outside of the channel saying I should get back into Let's Plays because those are fun. We'll see. I don't know, they never really pulled in the views. There was only one Let's Play that pulled in the views, but that's only because I covered something that not a lot of people were covering, so that was I rode that wave. But you know, Let's Plays are always a tricky thing, jumping on too late, jumping on too early. Well, I don't know if you can ever really jump on too early. Early is always good, but it's one of those things where it's like the competition is so high for Let's Plays that the person doing the Let's Play really has to be a personality people want to watch. And I'm not look, yeah, you might be saying, Pong, you're cutting yourself short here. Don't cut yourself short. People do. There are maybe like one or two people out there on your subscribers list of over 300 people that enjoys watching your material, not just for the info, which was the idea of the VGT. I don't have to necessarily be entertaining, but I don't know. We'll see. But I got a lot of news I want to cover, and hopefully I can get that news done by the end of this first part. But a little bit of what I've been up to, why I've been radio silent. So, yeah, I hurt my thumb, but that didn't really slow me down. That just slowed me down in playing games because I don't remember if I mentioned... Yeah, I mentioned this on the last podcast, but it's all better now. I sliced my thumb open with the box. Yeah, I did explain it. I did. Yeah, I now remember. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, it was a cool, like, bloody mess. Blah, spray, blah. It was gross. But anyways, my thumb is all better now, and I just recently, in the past couple days, picked up Cuphead. I've been holding off, only because I know it's one of those games that if I jump back right into it, I'm going to get addicted. Because those are the kind of games I love. But we're not going to be explaining, I'm not going to go into detail of what I've been playing recently, because there's a huge list, and I'm going to save that for the end of this podcast for, like, book club stuff. So, I think that's a good point for it. Maybe not. So, whatever. I've been moving also. I finally moved into my new spot. This is only temporary, but temporary can mean anywhere in between the next few months to a couple years. It all really depends on what plays out and whether or not this is a better situation or not. We'll see. It all really depends. So, yeah, interesting news, because it can actually help out not just myself, but the people around me. So, because I do work, I have a job, I got 5 kids, so things in my life kind of matter on the people around me. So, like, what I do on my free time isn't necessarily completely on my part. It's like, okay, well, I gotta weigh, like, what do I need to do? What adulting do I need to do? Matter of checks and balances. Oh, it's not the 15th or 14th yet. I can't even Can't even like update on that. Because I'm looking through I'm not reading off my notes, but I'm looking through my notes, and there's this huge giant section of news to catch up on and stuff. Some of it's newer, some of it's kind of old, but whatever. I was just remembering the FCC thing on. Hey guys, this is Sensei Pong, and this is actually just thrown in edited because I should have recorded after the FCC Council thing, because I talk a little bit about the whole net neutrality thing and the FCC, and start joking a little bit about fascism and not insinuating corruption, but, money talks. And, if I had a company that would benefit from a certain law or judgment pass that has to do with maybe some kind of marketplace or area where commerce can occur, I can understand why someone would be very willing to make more money. So, look, I'm not saying I'm for it. I'm not saying that it's corrupt. I'm just saying I'm scratching my chin. But either way, a whole lot of this podcast is probably going to be cut out because it's more like explaining on what net neutrality is. And at this point, I'm pretty sure everybody else is going to be talking about it, and everybody else is going to be like, hey, go talk to your senators about this, go talk to your representatives about this if you live in the States. This doesn't apply directly to everybody else in the world that doesn't live in the United States, but it does directly involve the people that do live in the United States, which, since the United States, let's face it, has a strong presence in the world market and a strong presence on the internet. So it probably will actually affect the world economy to some degree. Also, it might actually affect you, listener, that lives in England or Russia or Australia or South Africa. I don't know. But it can also affect other places that aren't directly infected infected by the American influence. That was not a Freudian slip. That wasn't. Please believe me on that. Influenced. That's what I wanted to say. Influenced. But who cares about that? Well, I've actually had better time to really think about how to explain this and where and why it's important. So let me just do that really quick. Net neutrality basically states that the internet needs to stay neutral. Nothing receives any sort of priority or special treatment, regardless of whether or not that special treatment is benefiting the consumer or benefiting the business or benefiting the site or benefiting the outside source on the internet. So this could mean, if net neutrality goes away, which it has, an ISP owner like Comcast can say, okay, well, it takes up bandwidth to stream a video, stream 4K video, whatever, on Netflix. Netflix, technically, they don't have to state this, but Netflix would be a direct competitor to their on-demand service. So now at this point, they can say, well, any outside video sourcing that's not part of Comcast needs to go onto a special charge. So they might actually charge you more. So your internet charges and your internet fees and all that will actually go up because of this. So what does that mean? It actually is kind of, it knocks out the competition, because now the ISP owner has the monopoly in that area. So, I like the game Monopoly, but, really it's not that good of an idea to have in real life, regardless of all that. That's a bad analogy. But anyways, I don't know. I don't want to get too much into detail about this. It's kind of depressing. Kind of sad to think that things would actually fall in this direction. But anyways, if you're okay with net neutrality going away, you don't have anything to really fear. Maybe, whatever. Okay. But if you do have anything against net neutrality going away, and you're not happy with what the FCC said or what the FCC has voted on, Now, are ways to do it. You can contact your senator, you can contact your representatives, but it needs to be the senator and representatives of your area. So, like, let's say, hypothetically, you live in Montana, right? You're not going to be contacting the senator of Utah or Illinois or New York. That makes no sense. You don't hold the votes for them, so they don't actually need to care. They shouldn't care about what people in Montana are thinking because they are not representing them. Or in this case, they are not representing you. If you live in New York, talk to your New York senator or your New York representative. Please do not spam all the other senators or representatives. It's a waste of their time, it's a waste of your time, and nothing's going to get done if that is the case. But there are a lot of sources on how to do this very easily on the internet, and it's actually a pretty easy way to do it. You can email, you can leave a phone call, you can do all sorts of stuff just to try to get in contact with your state representatives or senators. So, good stuff. It's awesome. That's pretty easy to do. And if enough complaints come through, hopefully what the case would be that the checks and balances of the U.S. government would come into play, and then maybe the Supreme Court or maybe Congress would have to step their foot into this and be like, hey, wait a second, let's figure this out. What needs to be done here? What are the pros? What are the cons? And was your deciding vote actually good for the country as a whole? At that point, it would be out of our hands. It would be out of whatever, but at least it would be talked about. So that's a good thing. Oh, what else did I want to say? Anyways, yeah, so without going into too much detail, the simplest way to put it is net neutrality means that the internet needs to stay neutral. But now the internet isn't neutral in the United States, so people can make claims on certain types of services, and this can affect you as a gamer. If you're a gamer and you listen to this podcast, I'm assuming you would be because this is a gaming podcast. So let's say you play Dota every week. Okay, we're just using that game as an example. Now, a company like, I don't know, whatever internet provider, whoever your internet provider is, let's say, I don't know, the Comcast Xfinity thing, or Time Warner, or maybe AT&T, it doesn't really matter. They can say in their area that they hold claim to, they can be like, okay, well, it costs us bandwidth to run certain games, or, just doing a whole umbrella system, be like, you're a gamer, okay, so you're going to be playing online multiplayer. Now they can say, well, that's a different type of traffic than just going online and downloading stuff, maybe downloading music, maybe watching a video on YouTube, maybe watching a video on Netflix or Amazon Prime. And they can say that sort of internet traffic needs to be charged at a higher rate, or maybe at a lower rate. They could do whatever they want. And probably not at a lower rate, because that means they won't be making money, and that means, you could be like, okay, well, as long as I keep playing multiplayer games, it's going to be cheaper than, whatever, on whatever, if that makes sense. They can say, regardless of what the actual bandwidth differences are, because a lot of internet games actually don't use up that much internet bandwidth. It's quite surprising. I did my research on this, but compared to 4K video and whatever, it doesn't really matter. They could say whatever they want and just be like, okay, games are always so different from each other that we're just going to umbrella the whole thing. Now, instead of, we could put a small charge, maybe a small in-company tax to this, and be like, hey, for every gigabyte, it charges you $1, or for every gigabyte, it charges you 50 cents extra, versus just going on the internet and going from site to site and then using that gigabyte of information, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I hope that does. And we're using a gigabyte because that's just an easy way to put it, but because most games use so many megabytes of information every hour to every week for updates, a few hundred a week. Like Dota, I think, uses maybe about 250 to 500 megabytes a week of updates in terms of downloads. I don't remember. I think it's something close to that. Fortnite uses somewhere around maybe 600 to 700 megabytes of in-game time an hour or two or something like that. I don't remember what it was. This is the kind of like numbers and stuff you can actually look up pretty easily on probably like Google or DuckDuckGo. Take your pick. But this is treating different types of internet traffic, you know, equally or differently. Equally would mean net neutrality because you're being neutral on the fact, oh, this is the type of traffic that you're doing. This is what you're looking at on the internet. This is what you're doing on the internet. And I'm going to treat that the same as this or that. I'm going to treat your gaming time and your gaming bandwidth the same as your video content, your video bandwidth, right? Or whatever you're downloading. With net neutrality going away, they can say, okay, we're going to treat this type of video content differently versus this type of internet activity differently versus this type of gaming differently. You know, now they can put different charges on different things, and maybe the real worry about for a consumer is, are they price gouging at certain areas? And chances are some companies will price gouge, as you know, we kind of saw what Comcast did a couple months ago, saying, well, we're not gonna change our policy with the net neutrality thing. We're gonna keep everything equal, and we're gonna keep everything, you know, we're gonna treat everything equally. And then when the FCC was like really going down on being like, okay, this is when the hearing's gonna be, this is when we're gonna vote on it, Comcast took out a whole bunch of their stuff that they promised on and said, actually, just kidding. This is our new statement. We've updated it, but the update was basically just taking out a bunch of the promises of saying that they would keep it neutral and keep it, you know, treat everything equally. So, what does that mean? What does that possibly imply? It could mean that Comcast would try to make the most money out of things. I'm not saying they would. I'm just saying now they have the option to. And I'm not just nitpicking on Comcast here. This goes to all the companies. Time Warner, AT&T, what was another one off the top of my head? Maybe Verizon. Yeah, there's a lot of ISPs out there. ISP stands for Internet Service Provider. So, you know, this can also go for like phones too, because now, you know, a lot of people use the internet on their phone. A lot of people use their internet on different tablets that are mobily connected. So it doesn't have to be through a Wi-Fi station. This could also be a problem for libraries too, if come to think about it, because libraries use a lot of internet. They use a lot of stuff. This can actually affect movie theaters too, come to think about it, because they receive you know, so many films a week over the internet because everything's done digitally. Because I don't imagine, you know, trucks going out with a USB stick and being like, all right, here's your new movie to the Avengers 4, Avengers 15. I don't, you know, and just throwing it at them. They could probably just email that to them. With net neutrality, that's not that big of a worry, because all they have to do is be like, all right, our business doesn't use more than 100 megabytes of bandwidth. You know, okay, that's not realistic. Let's say they pay for 1,000 gigabytes of bandwidth a month. Okay, so like they can run their basic, you know, software and internet searching for different ratings and reviews. I'm using a movie theater as an example because I used to work at a movie theater about like 9-10 years ago. So they could do all their stuff, send emails within the company, and that's the business end of the email. Maybe some accounting software, maybe some, you know, other stuff. All right. Now, on top of that, they can also be sending movies over, you know, the email onto their servers. That way they can just load it up onto all the different projectors. So now that they're downloading stuff, that movie theater might get affected in saying, okay, downloading and uploading video files is going to be an extra charge for you. So this might actually hurt businesses you might not even think about, like movie theaters. This might actually even affect, you know, your local mom and pa, like 7-Eleven or convenience store, for all we know. I don't know how, you know, most convenience stores run, but I'd assume it's pretty straightforward retail, small shop, right? I'm probably wrong on this, but it's probably like a retail grocery kind of mishmash kind of thing. But the way libraries could be affected is how much internet can they actually use? What kind of internet can they use now, because they only have a fixed budget that's given to them from the state because they are a public library. So this might actually cut down some library services as well if it goes in the worst direction possible. So we'll have to see what happens. Personally, let me just put down my opinions here on the table. I usually try to stay middle of the road on everything. Even though I do have my actual personal opinions I vote on, I personally, have strong opinions, but I don't like project them. I don't like preaching to the public. I don't like doing that kind of stuff. So this sort of conversation right now that we're having is quite rare for me. But what are my opinions on net neutrality? I'm actually more for net neutrality than against it, only because if you really weigh the pros and cons, I'd rather keep all internet traffic equal. That way companies that hold a monopoly in an area can't dictate the competition in that area. That's actually why Netflix and Amazon are for net neutrality, why Netflix has been putting out tweets that they're like saddened about this whole FCC vote, why Amazon is like, oh, you guys, really, seriously, please don't do this. Those services, and probably even Google to some extent, have been all saying, no, we want net neutrality. It benefits the competition. It benefits everybody else. The only people that it benefits when you take the neutrality away are the people that own the ISPs, like Comcast, Verizon, AT&T. So I use this in an example later in the podcast, but I'm probably going to edit that out because I can probably explain it better now. Let's say Comcast has their own video service, which they do. It's on demand, Comcast, Xfinity, cable. They can charge more for outside video streaming services. So now your Netflix, yes, it only costs let's say $10 a month for a subscription, or $7 a month, whatever it was. Okay, it costs that much, but now there's extra fees added onto your Comcast bill. So we'll see what happens. Luckily I live in a big enough town where I have enough internet ISPs that we can choose, that the people around me can choose from. So yes, there is that competition. But now, what does that mean to the people that live in rural areas? They don't have a choice. If they want internet, it might actually be charged up the wazoo and they won't be able to afford it. So that's an unfortunate fact about monopolies. If you only have one choice, there is no choice. You either take it or you don't take it, and if you don't take it, you lose the benefits of having it. So yeah, that was a bit ranty. I apologize, but I feel like this was a needed little amendment to my whole podcast, and I know it's not as jokey and fun and all that, but it's kind of important because I run a podcast. I run videos on my YouTube channel and here on the RSS feeds, so it does affect me, possibly. We'll see. I don't know. It all really depends on what my internet bill is coming up. In the next few months. It's probably not going to be an automatic thing. It's probably going to be a nice little gradual thing. It's just going to keep on climbing because Comcast keeps getting more freaking expensive. We'll see. So, I joked about this earlier, but let's have a moment of silence for the internet. Got the music. Because I'm probably going to have some kind of background bumper music to this. All right. In the meantime. Oh, yeah. Well, no. The podcast isn't over. This is just a little amendment. Other things that have been going on. Yeah, just know a lot of personal things have been going on in my life. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't been able to do what I've been wanting to do. I've been actually wanting to record this episode for the past 3 weeks. But it hadn't come to fruition. So you might be thinking, oh, well, this gives Pong well enough time to play the games in the book club, right? Right. You are wrong, sir, and I will get into that later. And I am sorry, I apologize. But next month's book club, for anybody that's only interested in that, I put an update out on my Twitter. It's going to be Etrian, Odyssey, Untold, the Millennium Girl on the 3DS, Super Mario Odyssey on... I don't know why I had to think about that. And Super Mario Odyssey on the Switch. And what was the last one? Barbactaria's Odyssey, which is available on PC and on itch.io. I'll leave a link to that below. That's a free game. It's still in beta. I know I've said in the past that I don't like playing games in beta or early access too often because it's not a good representation of what the end product's going to be, but I wanted another game with the word Odyssey in it, and apparently there's not that many out there, or at least, I was thinking originally, I was like, I wonder what other third game I can do, and first thing that came into my mind was the Magnavox Odyssey or the Odyssey 2, so I was like, alright, well, no one, except for my retro fans, may even know how to get their hands on that, so I was like, okay, let's look into emulators, and I was like, maybe this is getting too complicated for people. I don't know. I don't want you all going to shady sites. I know at least if I get a group of people to do it, at least one person will go onto a shady site and be like, Pong, Sensei, I downloaded a virus just to play this crappy game, Look, the Odyssey is before my time, so I know what the Odyssey is. I've seen gameplay. I've played emulators of the Odyssey 2, and there's not really an emulator for the original Odyssey, but there kind of is. There is because it's emulating what the Odyssey did, but it's like, this is a tangent, and it doesn't matter. But, okay, so what the Odyssey basically was just like this plug-and-play thing where, like, you'd have, like, white on black, and you can move it around, and the way the quote-unquote games would change is if you would put cellophane overlays on your TV, and then you basically, it's so easy to cheat because there's no programming involved except for, maybe some real rudimentary stuff like, oh, this little white block will bounce off this little white block, and now you can play a version of Pong. Sweet. It's really not. It wasn't worth it, so I was like, okay, let's look up something. Let's go to itch.io. There's got to be something with the word Odyssey, and there was a bunch. That Barbactaria's Odyssey looked interesting. I was like, okay, well, let's check that out. That looks cool. It's kind of interesting. It's, from what I've seen, like screenshots and description, genre-wise, it's very different from Super Mario Odyssey and Etrian Odyssey, so I was like, alright, that's my wild card. Etrian Odyssey is kind of the retro title, but it's still pretty new. I think it came out in 2013. So it's not truly retro. Retro, I would say, is 5 to 10 years and older. It really depends on the title. Anyways, let's carry on. So, yeah, that's basically it. Oh, other news. I'm in the works for starting up another podcast, but specifically just for the bedtime stories, because people have been asking, all right, well, you got the podcast up and running. There's got to be a way you can up and run, your bedtime stories on a podcast stream. So I was thinking to myself, okay, fine. I've got more than enough people that want the bedtime stories, so I might as well just do that. And I like doing the bedtime stories. I love doing them. It's just, they take me forever to write because I'm so dang nitpicky about, poetic form and writing. But maybe I should loosen up a bit and just let the writing chops flow. We'll see. I don't know. It's not my strongest suit. Let's move on to the news. The news of the past month and a half. Oh yeah, I was gonna do bumper music. Just throw that in right now. Probably gonna be Christmas themed. Here comes Santa Claus, there goes the Santa Claus climbing up the walls, laying eggs with all his elves in the corners of the hall. And when the eggs are ready to hatch for all the girls and boys, I say grab your wife and hide your kids, there's Santa's in your wall. Here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus. So, I think I got this from IGN. So I'm not sure why this is not my IGN news story of the week. But regardless of that, it made me smile. Guess who's showing up on Marvel's new TV show? New Warriors. Squirrel Girl. Woo. I always had this joke with, like, see if a person's a comic book nerd. Now it doesn't really matter anymore because most people know who Squirrel Girl is because it's kind of a joke because she canonically in the Marvel comic universe, she's beaten Doctor Doom, which, yeah. Then again, I did see, like, in my research for this, I did find a funny forum argument amongst comic book guys where it's just like, who can beat Doctor Doom, blah, 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 or who can't beat Doctor Doom. And so, yeah, that was the other thing. Who can't beat Doctor Doom? Because apparently a whole laundry list of different superheroes have beaten Doctor Doom in the past. And then all the Doom fanboys were like, no, Doctor Doom is Doctor Doom. You can't, with enough time, he can beat anybody. Which is the argument that people put on for Batman as well. With enough time, Batman can beat anybody. Which, with enough time, I think anybody can beat anybody. Is the real answer to that. I'm sure there's a way for Rorschach to even beat Doctor Doom if, hypothetically, those two universes were to, like... I know it's DC to Marvel and DC Watchmen to Marvel, but whatever, who cares? I'm not even going to talk about Flashpoint. Let's not even think about that. I'm just saying, with enough time, I think anybody can beat anybody. But the girl from the AT&T commercials is casted as Squirrel Girl. I don't know what that means. People were happy about that. They were like, oh, well, she's a good fit, so I guess that's a good thing. What's the point of this? Look, all I'm saying is that the chick is a better comic. It's had funnier comics, better cartoons, better TV adaptations. Wherever you look, it's just better. That's a lie. I do love the Batman animated series. That's easily one of my favorite comic book cartoons of all time, like TV adaptations. I also like the 60s Batman. Shapow! In other news, Fireball Island is coming back? Question mark, question mark. There is a Kickstarter coming soon, hopefully, by a company called Restoration Games. If you don't know what Fireball Island is, it's this kind of cult classic board game from, I want to say it was the 80s, but it's so hard to explain because the board game was so genius. I have a copy of it, but it's missing pieces. I want this to come through, and then I will buy a new Fireball Island because that would be freaking amazing. And basically, all the players are these adventurers, and you got to get these gems. And there's these like caves you can rummage through and kind of basically like teleport from one side of the island to the other. And it's kind of like an open world island, which is neat. A neat concept in itself. But the one thing that you got to be careful of is that there's like this giant tiki head thing at the top of the mountain, kind of like a volcano, shooting fireballs at all the characters. So if one random card comes up or something else activates, fireballs come down, and the people can be pushed all the way back to the docks where they started off, where they landed on the island. It's a neat adventure game. You basically go in like Indiana Jones or Lara Croft and get the treasure and get out. I never had the instruction booklet in my copy because I found it at St. Vinny's, I think, or it could have been Goodwill. I think it was St. Vinny's, and I was like, "Dude, this looks awesome. I want it." This is like a little Pong, little teenage Pong, and then we played it, and it was awesome. Realized it didn't have all the pieces, but even then, making up my own rules with my sister growing up, it was still a lot of fun. I want to see Fireball Island come back. Look into it. I could probably find the link. If I can find the link to the Kickstarter, that's going to be down below in the description below. So go look that up. It's pretty cool. I think y'all will enjoy it. Something neat that was announced in the past month and a half was Spelunky 2. Good on them. I don't remember if I already reported on this because it's been a while since that was reported because they had like this. They had a teaser trailer for it, but Spelunky 2, if you're not familiar with Spelunky, it's basically on all the last gen consoles. Basically, maybe the Wii U, I don't know. It's not on the 3DS, I know that. And I'm not sure if it's on the PS Vita. It might be. I wouldn't be surprised if it is, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't. But Spelunky is available on PC, Xbox 360, maybe Xbox One, maybe PS4. I'm pretty sure it's on PS3. But Spelunky is awesome. Basically what it is, it's like a type of roguelite game. So it's roguelike tourists would be like, it's not a true roguelike. But, who cares about that? It's randomly generated dungeons, blah, blah. You're like this little Indiana Jonesy type character going through the cave, going deeper and deeper. And you got to find, it's been a while since I played, like the Eye of Ra or something at the very bottom of it. And you can also dig down to hell. There's also like random like pads that can happen where like if you're in the ice caverns, you can on random chance maybe find the entrance to a spaceship that's frozen under the ice, and if you go inside it, it unlocks a whole different kind of level design thing where like now you're climbing through the spaceship to get whatever. It's pretty cool. I love Spelunky. It's a pretty difficult game. A lot of people struggle with it. I think the deepest I've ever gone was like the Egyptian cavern, like the Egyptian ruins. Because for these kind of games, I like starting from square one. That way, I can build up my capital and like, you know, I don't necessarily like starting at checkpoints because you don't have the same amount of money or the same amount of supplies, and it's harder to like balance what kind of supplies you can get over time. So that's a little trick. Also, starting from square one every time you play makes you better at like the earlier stages. So at that point you can start breezing through it. So like yeah, like the first set of caves that you come through, which is just general caves, I can breeze through that pretty easily now. I can also breeze through the jungle pretty well too. The ice caverns, I normally try to avoid everything, so I actually breeze through it pretty well as long as I have enough supplies. It's everything at that point on where I start having a little bit of issue because it's like I don't play those very often, so it's like, oh boy, you know. But I'm so excited for Spelunky 2. I want to see it on the Switch. That way I can play it anywhere I want. I want it on my computer. I want it on the Switch. I want it on my PS4. I want it on PS3. I want it on everything. I don't know when it's coming out, but whatever year it's coming out, expect that to be my most anticipated game of the year for when I do my January special for most anticipated games. So that should be pretty cool. Other news, developer Grezzo is working on another quote-unquote Legend 2 game. Now, you're probably not familiar with Grezzo unless like you're deep in the back pockets of Big N. But Grezzo... Big N. I'm a dork. I first heard this news from the Go Nintendo podcast, which is a podcast you should be listening to if you're a big Nintendo fan. Now, Grezzo is a company that did the remaster for Majora's Mask. They did a great job for that. I had no complaints there. It's a good remaster. It's an awesome. They did a great job. But what do they mean as in quote unquote Legend 2? Now, this could mean a couple different things. Maybe they're just sequeling. They're saying, yes, we're doing another Legend of Zelda remake, which would be pretty cool. What are some remakes I would want to see? The most realistic one maybe would be Twilight Princess, because they just came out with Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time just in the past several years. And Wind Waker came out in the past several years. So it's... actually, yeah, Twilight Princess came out too, didn't it? I don't remember. But this could mean a bunch of different things. So the ones they've already remastered are probably not on their list if they're doing Zelda. So what Raw Meat Cowboy, the head host of Go Nintendo, was saying, this could possibly mean Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link, or The Adventure of Link, which is the direct sequel to the original Legend of Zelda. Now, these days, this is a funny thing that I've mentioned before, but these days people usually consider Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link to be a classic. Now, I'm in the camp where I'm old enough where I remember people complaining about Zelda 2. Being like, man, this game is janky. It's nothing. It doesn't feel necessarily like a Zelda. It's got all the weird 2D elements, the random battles, and real Moon Logic-y type puzzles and items you gotta collect. And yeah, that is the biggest fault to Zelda 2. It is hard because of that. You're constantly running around the map, looking for the items just to progress through the game. Also, unlike standard Zeldas, what people would consider old school Zeldas, where it's like a top-down 2D thing, like a Minish Cap or Link Between Worlds thing, where it's like overhead isometric maybe. Instead of like all the enemies just being around you and like you attacking in real time to the enemies in the area, it's like you're going through like this overworld map and suddenly these little black things would like come at you and surround you and attack you, and you'd have to fight them off. in a 2D action arena type fight, or you can run to the side of the screen and try to run away. Now, run away from battle, quote unquote. So it's not like a true like random battle JRPG style mechanic. It's still action based, but a lot of people didn't like that at the time. People look back at it now and say, "Well, no, Zelda 2 wasn't that bad," you know. But if they were to HD remaster Zelda 2, that would still be interesting to me. They'd probably fix some of the broken things in the game, like mechanics. Maybe keep that still, make it still feel like Zelda 2, but maybe cut out some of the BS that happened in Zelda 2. Nothing comes to mind, like finding the whistle and crouching and sitting down at a wall for like 5 seconds just to activate a tornado so you can fly onto the next area. That's weird moon logic. So, hopefully if they do that, they'll be fixing that kind of stuff. What was the other things I thought that could mean this? So, Legend 2 could also mean, could they be making 2 games? No, stay with me on this. Because there was one Zelda game on the Game Boy Color that had a double release. It was Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. And that'd be cool. Because those were solid games. Those were kind of in the classic style of like Link's Awakening or Link's Awakening DX, same game, just deluxe version, and then Link to the Past and Link Between Worlds, that kind of Zelda game, where it's like old school top down. That'd be cool. I'd be okay with that. They could just be meaning a whole different Zelda game. I don't know, saying it's 2. Now, there were some other quote unquote legendary Nintendo IPs that you can think of, because it doesn't necessarily mean that they're doing Zelda. But saying Legend 2 insinuates that they're doing Nintendo, because they said they're working on a Legend. Well, they said they were working on a quote-unquote Legend game months before they announced that they were working on the Majora's Mask HD remaster. So, some other titles I can think of that would probably benefit from an HD remaster. You've got Kid Icarus, Earthbound, Golden Sun, Sin and Punishment, Fire Emblem, Star Tropics. I put down Xenoblade on here for some reason, but I don't think Xenoblade is old enough to like justify a HD remaster. You've got Advance Wars, and of course, with a big LOL at the end of my notes, Legendary Starfy, which I like that game. That game's fun. It didn't do well, sadly. It's got its issues, but it's still fun. Yeah. It's like a platformer game where like you're like this cute little star character with a face on it, and you're jumping through, and you can swim through clouds and water and all sorts of fun puzzle platforming, borderline Metroidvania type stuff. Moving on. Man, there are a lot of Switch news on here. But this one's not Switch news. I think the public, this is just a quick note. The public opinion of Take-Two is that they're officially better than EA, which, knowing Take-Two's track record, still actually isn't that hard to beat EA in terms of public opinion. But let's not go too much into that, because that's... yeah. So, moving on. Square Enix Aggression is making Switch games. They made a public announcement that... Well, Square Enix made a public announcement that they're going to start aggressively making games for the Switch. What do they mean when they say aggressively? That sounds a little frightening, but this could be anything. This is pretty cool. They said it's the perfect platform for their middle-sized games, their middle-sized titles and franchises, which actually adds quite a bit. I want to say they also said that they kind of do better with making mid-sized games, so probably not like a Final Fantasy, because that's a big game. Those are big games. Those are like their flagship titles. But this could mean a lot of things. What are some of their middle-sized games that I listed right here? Well, you've got the Mana series, Chrono Trigger, Bravely Default, Star Ocean, ActRaiser, Fortune Street, Carmageddon, Gex, and Lufia. Gex was developed by somebody else, but Square Enix published it, and I want to say Lufia is the same way. But all of those games would be pretty cool. Something else that I know some of you fans would be out there would be really excited for is that if you're not familiar with Square Enix and their different holdings on different companies, they do own Taito games. So this would also include like classics like Bubble Bobble. Arkanoid, Space Invaders, Keeks, Darius, Zookeeper. Why did I put Zookeeper on there? Well, I know why I put I love Zookeeper. It's a classic arcade game, but I don't see them HD remaking that. And I have Klax on here for some reason. And I think that's only because I want a new Klax. Man, I want a new Klax. I don't even care if it's like a shat out like $5, $10 title. I want a new Klax. Puzzle addictions. Yeah, so who knows? They've got a lot of good IPs. They got a lot of good stuff under their belt that they help both develop for and publish for. So it could also mean like maybe a Tomb Raider game. Who knows? It could mean a lot of different things. I think they also do Hitman and Deus Ex. At least, not necessarily first-party develop in terms of Square Enix. I mean like third-party, like their third-party developers make that kind of stuff. So it could mean a lot of different things. This is pretty cool. Pay attention to it if you're a Nintendo fan or a Switch owner. Moving on. This is truly old hat news, but it pertains to me, and I thought it was cool. StarCraft 2 goes free to play. So I tweeted this out, and I was like, oh my gosh, you know, everybody should play it if y'all like the RTS games. The RTS games of the week. StarCraft 2. Go play it. It is free. It will probably run on most modern PCs. Well, it'll easily run on all modern PCs. Even if your PC is like kind of older, like mine, like top of the line, 2010, 2011. It still runs fine on my computer. So it should be able to run on yours as long as it's not like from the late 90s or early 2000s, early aughts. So, you know, StarCraft 2, what is it? It's an RTS game. That's a real-time strategy. So that's games like Command and Conquer, what Dota and MOBA-like games were originally modded from. So if you're into that kind of gameplay, I'm currently playing, I haven't jumped back into it recently, but because of my thumb incident, I was like, well, this works out perfectly because I don't want to be moving around my thumb. And that's mostly just a couple like key presses on the keyboard and a lot of mouse work for my other hand, which did not get hurt, my right hand. So, you know, a couple weeks ago, I was like knees deep in StarCraft 2. So yeah, that's cool stuff. Go look it up. Go look it up. It's by Blizzard. It's free now. So, just like the first one, it's free. Oh yeah. But now you might be thinking, well, I already own StarCraft 2. What does this mean to me? I already know this, but just in case anybody didn't know, if you own StarCraft 2 and did not get the Nova Corps expansion chapter, like chapter 4, or the expansion pack 4, or expansion pack 3 technically, if you owned StarCraft 2 beforehand, you get that extra content for free now. But if you didn't own it previously, you get the first 3 chapters for free. And those first 3 chapters are huge campaigns. So if you're into RTS games like Age of Empires, I highly recommend and kind of beg you to go play StarCraft 2. StarCraft, in general, is easily one of the best RTS series and franchises of all time. And if you haven't played it, you really should. You'll really enjoy it. On my notes here, it says no, not StarCraft. I can't believe it's not gambling. I think this is just I have so many stupid little things in my notes that make no sense to me. I know what this is insinuating. I know what the joke was. I had like this funny thing of like this little thought and like this image in my head where it was like, I can't believe it's not butter. And then you have Battlefield 2. I can't believe it's not gambling. But whatever. So this is more for let's just move on. Let's move on to something else. This pertains mostly to my European listeners, if you're all out there. I know on the channel I have quite a bit of people from the UK and France and Germany, mostly from the UK. But Sociable Soccer is coming to console in February 2018. They're the makers of Sensible Soccer. This probably means nothing to my American audiences, but if you like sports games, if you like soccer, definitely look out for this one, because it is coming to the Switch as well, and it's coming out to PS4 and Xbox One. So be on a lookout for that. If FIFA 18 just costs too much money, sociable soccer probably will be your thing, and you'll probably have more fun with it in general. I'm not familiar with the series at all, or the maker of the series. I heard this on Retro Hour, because they were like, Sensible Soccer, Sensible Soccer. They're all British, so they're like, oh my gosh, they're remaking a new one. That's cool. Awesome. Sweet. I was like, okay. If they like it, I'll probably like it too, so, chances are, I do like my sports games. I just haven't played a whole bunch in the past 8 years, 10 years, because they haven't gone in a direction that I enjoy. I do like my Madden games. I like the realism. I like my FIFA titles, at least the old ones. But I don't want to be throwing down like $150 for a sports game. I know the licensing's expensive, but y'all have monopoly on it. There's gotta be some price gouging there. Either way, if you like sports games, Sociable Soccer is coming February 18. Look out for that. Oh, other thing. Another Blizzard news. WoW Classic is coming back. They haven't, I don't believe they've announced a date on when that's coming back, but for all you nostalgic fanboys of MMOs, WoW Classic. Wow. Just a wow. Just wow. That was pretty lame. What do I think? That's cool. I don't know. I've never been a big MMORPG guy. I don't look. My sentiments on MMORPGs hasn't changed in like 15 years. I don't like the idea of a whole bunch of side quests being like, go get 15 global hearts. Good job. You got some money. New quest available. Go get 10 global hearts. Good job. You got some money and experience. Oh, my global farm is having issues. You need to go kill 5 of them. Good job. Here's some money and experience. It's there. And then some of them are just poorly balanced where it's just like, yeah, I've been grinding for like 5 hours and I gained a level. I don't know. It's just, there's only been a few MMOs that I've been really into, and that's mainly Dofus, because I like strategy RPGs. So, and even then, that was kind of pushing it for me. I really enjoy Dofus and Wakfu, but, just, they make the game really fun, so they do a really good job. But, this doesn't really mean anything to me, so please don't ask me for more information on how WoW Classic is doing. I have a feeling that people are going to be all nostalgic and with their rose-tinted glasses and be like, oh my gosh, I remember the good old days, and then they'll play it and be like, oh yeah, now I remember all the bad things. Yeah, But in good news, Cuphead 2 is now in development. Because of the success of Cuphead 1, the developers have announced that they are now working on Cuphead 2, which is pretty cool. I am down with that. I want to see that happen. I wouldn't knowing how long it took them to develop Cuphead 1, don't expect Cuphead 2 to be coming for at least another few years. Maybe 2020, 2019 at the very earliest, but I highly doubt that would happen. So 2020, 2021, maybe 2022. But Cuphead 2 would be pretty cool. Cuphead 2 for 2022. That'll be fun. When the Switch is nice and old, who knows? I don't know. We'll see. It's pretty cool. They're indie devs, so usually they don't make their things so graphically intense. They want everybody to play it. So that'll be fun to see. Definitely if you like running guns and platformy shmups. In sad news, cue the sad music. Telltale has laid off a huge division of their workforce. I can't say I didn't see this one coming, because Telltale, I have very mixed feelings on Telltale. I appreciate what they do. At the same time, they can't be pumping out, so many games every year as a small studio. It's just, they have other things they need to work on to make it better. I know their games are very buggy. I want to say their engine is like 10 years old or something like that. I don't really know. But it definitely feels like a really old retro engine. And I could have probably seen this one coming. It's sad to see, but if you love Telltale and don't want them to go out of business, go buy their games right now. Not going to say you're going to enjoy those games, but just saying, I guess Telltale is struggling at the moment, which is sad. Because they've gotten their hands on some awesome IPs. They should have been able to fix that. It's just, I think it's the upper management that made the bad calls. I don't know. We'll see. Because the devs only have so much power in what they create. They have to listen to their bosses. Anywho, moving on. Something funny that Total Biscuit on the Co-optional podcast noticed a few weeks ago was that card game mechanics. The weird flip and switch of different card game mechanics. So like the difference between like online computer card games or like mobile card games versus like physical card game players. So like people that actually play card games in real life versus in a digital form. Where a lot of online card games have become more random, the physical card games have become more strategic and deck building. Just thought that was a funny little trend switch. Because at one point it was the other way around. Like 15 years ago, physical card games were all about those random, packs and random builds and random chances. But these days, physical card games are more about deck building and strategy. So you could still win even if you don't have the good cards. It's just how are you utilizing those cards. So that was kind of interesting to notice. In small news, HAL Laboratories recently came out with their first mobile game, and it's only available in Japan at the moment. I saw a little bit of it. It's a real cutesy HAL Laboratory-esque type casual game where like you're like this little UFO flying around, catching things and stacking things. It's pretty cool. It's called Hataraku UFO, or if I were to say this in a Japanese accent, Hataraku UFO. Because they don't say UFO, they say UFO, which I always thought was funny. Being half Japanese myself, I was like, that's okay, whatever. I don't know. I hope it gets localized. And I hope this is a new trend for HAL, because if you're not familiar with HAL, they're the ones that develop the Smash Brothers and Kirby series. They're a side company that's parented by Nintendo, kind of like how Game Freak / the Pokemon Company isn't really Nintendo, but they're parented by Nintendo. So go look that up. It's fun stuff. Hataraku UFO by HAL Laboratories. I'm really hoping, like I said, that they start making more mobile games, and hopefully they can localize it to the States or to the rest of the world, because they're pretty good at what they do. They're good at cutesy, fun stuff. So if you're into that, it's good stuff. This is speculation, but this is different news. Speculation news here. Star Wars Battlefront 2. I'm saying this could be the death rattle for EA DICE, for DICE Studios. DICE could be on the chopping block at some point within the next year or two, because depending on how the sales with Battlefront 2 goes, they might want to downsize the dev. So that would be sad to see, but it wouldn't be like unexpected. And they made some bad decisions and got on everybody's bad side about pay to win mechanics. So we'll see what happens. Apparently it's better right now, but EA can always just flip that switch. It'd probably be really easy for them to just flip that switch and make it pay to win once they hit that sales margin that they want. So, I don't know. But for the moment, I'm going to say EA DICE is on the chopping block. So let's have a moment of silence for both the internet and EA DICE because of net neutrality. I'm thinking to myself, this is a bad idea. No one wants dead air on a podcast. I don't know why people do moments of silence. I know it's respectful, but I'm just saying, dead air is a really bad idea for any podcast or even radio. But when you're listening to me, Sensei Pong, on the Sensei Pongcast, you're expecting some dead air at some point in any part of the show. So maybe this isn't too much of a surprise, but at least this time I'm meaning to do dead air. Moment of silence. Ba 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 ba. Good night, DICE. I'm not going to do all of Taps. I don't think I know all of Taps in my head. I'm in a weird state of mind at the moment. I don't think I can do it correctly, and that would be disrespectful, so I'm not going to even continue with that. I don't know why this was such big news, but everybody was freaking out. There's only one big thing about this, and this only matters to like Switch owners and like 3DS owners and maybe Wii U owners. But Super Mario Serial is coming. It's a USA exclusive, and according to Go Nintendo, he tried it out recently, and it's like a Lucky Charms thing with kind of a mixed berry thing. So that's, I guess that should be good. I'm gonna try it. I'll let you know how it tastes. But the big thing is that the cereal boxes themselves are going to be little amiibos that you can like put up against your consoles and get all that like cereal dust in the buttons. You know, good stuff like that. Classic, seriously old school. Like let's grab the cereal box for all its surprises. I'm happy about that. Nintendo is smart, helping Kellogg's and Big Cereal Post and maybe General Mills. I don't know, but yeah, they were joking on the Go Nintendo podcast that, well, Nintendo already has a deal with Post with their cereals. So now they're going to have Kellogg's make a Mario cereal. There's just going to be Mario all throughout the cereal aisle. And I think my littlest is going to be freaking out over that and be like, I want that cereal, I want that cereal. And, well, cereal isn't super unhealthy. It's not that bad. So, I don't know. It's cool stuff. Oh, one other thing that came out was FNAF Tycoon. That's Five Nights at Freddy's Tycoon with a question mark. I was running a couple different things at the same time, and I opened it up. I haven't really played it. It's a pretty basic game. I'm pretty sure it's multi-layered, but it's like a little mini game where you throw pizzas at kids. Whatever. If you're into the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise, go check that out. It is free on Steam. All I gotta say is, OMFG, Scott, make a game with an escape button, because I had to Alt 4 everything just to get out, because I was double tasking on my computer at the same time while I was researching. I was like, oh, let's open this up real fast and play that in the background while I'm doing research for the podcast here. And I couldn't go back and forth between the two, unlike most games that I can like double task my computer. But I couldn't, and I couldn't hit the escape button, because the escape button is a standard for every single freaking computer game, and I had to Alt F4. That shouldn't be an issue, Scott. You've made like a whole bunch of games at this point. A good bunch of them are FNAF games. But even the FNAF games had the escape button as a feature. Make that a feature, please. I know it's a free game. I know nobody cares about this little gripe that I have, but whatever. It's a gripe. It's a gripe. Before we go on break, there's a few other things I want to mention real fast. To my retro fans, I heard this on the Retro Hour podcast. If you're not familiar with the Retro Hour podcast, you should go check them out. They're a lot of fun. They always get some awesome guests on there. Their 100th episode special was amazing. They got Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari and Chuck E. Cheese, on their podcast and had a talk with him, and that was cool. You should go check that out. I couldn't believe they got Bushnell on there. I was like, holy balls, you guys are freaking amazing. Go check them out. But one thing that they had mentioned was that Sonic 3D Blast has now gotten a remake from one of the original developers, and he's titling it Sonic 3D Blast DX. It is available for free download as a ROM. So you got to have an emulator for this. But regardless of that, it's from the developer, so it's not like it's a pirated source or like some fan-made like HD remake. But what he did was he's going through it and fixing out some of the bugs and stuff. So that's pretty cool. Go check that out. I'm assuming one of the bugs he fixed was the crash fix, where it's like if the game crashes at any point, like the level crashes, it jumps into a cheat screen and a level select as a little funny way that developers hide that they have a broken game. So, it's like, congratulations, you opened up the level select, but really the level crashed. And they're like, oh, okay, here, choose any level you want, which is kind of a cool feature. So if you have the actual 3D Blast on your Sega, just maybe, this is a bad idea, don't ever do this, but I was just going to say, shake the cartridge a little bit while it's in the Genesis. It's a terrible idea. But I don't know. Anyways, that's cool. I'll leave a link down below in the description for that. Not saying most of y'all will like Sonic 3D Blast. A lot of people say it's one of the most janky 3D Sonic games. just before Adventure. And I'd have to say, yeah, Adventure plays maybe a little bit better, but I still like 3D Blast better than Adventure because it's not stupid cheesy. Not saying I want my Sonic games to be all serious and dark. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying. This is old news, but Hoenn Pokemon are now coming to Pokemon Go, and this includes the starters. More on the way in the coming weeks. Plus, real weather patterns will now show up on local weather for the player, and Pokemon Go will also report hazardous weather if it thinks it's too dangerous to go play outside. And all I have to say to Niantic is, thanks, Mother. Maybe I want to play outside in the snow or the rain or the hurricane. That's where the best Pokemon are. Don't do that. Something else that got announced was at the Game Awards, and I'll cover that in the next segment after my break. But Bayonetta 3 was announced as a Switch exclusive at the moment, which means probably in 5 years, Bayonetta 3 might come to PC. I'm not sure. Either way, that's pretty cool. Actually, because I gotta go right now, I'm gonna say... actually, let's just cover it real fast. Toys R Us update. There's still not much info, and I think it's mostly because we kind of have to see how Toys R Us does by the end of this holiday season. Last time I mentioned Toys R Us, I said they might be filing for bankruptcy, they might be going out of business, Toys R Us stores might close down, and that's sad to see. But when I did a little bit more research, I noticed that there was a little bit of what I would call scare journalism, because anytime they would mention Toys R Us, they'd mention Mattel. And Mattel stocks in the past 5 years have been dropping pretty bad. Mattel also does Fisher-Price. And that's bad for them, and that's not good. And I don't want to see Mattel, fall apart as a business. But what they didn't mention was that Hasbro, Bandai, and Lego... Okay, we'll talk about Lego in a second, but Hasbro and Bandai, two other big toy companies. Hasbro owns Parker Brothers and Tiger Electronics. Bandai is Bandai Namco, which does a lot of Japanese toys and Japanese toy exports. In the past 5 years, they've just been growing. They've been growing like mad. Hasbro, Tiger Electronics also makes Furby. So that's, all these kind of other toys. So they've been doing well. Lego, as of recent, past couple months ago, reported that they were cutting 8% of their staff because their revenue has kind of decreased as of 10 years ago. It's the first time their revenue has shrunk. But I looked at the graphs, I looked at their revenue stream and their revenue reports, and compared to 10 years ago, they are making like 5 to 6 times more money than they were 10 years ago. So I'm not exactly sure, like 15 years ago. So I'm not sure if this is really a scare for Lego. I don't think Lego is in any serious trouble. I think what it was that Lego was growing at such an exponential rate. It started kind of leveling off a little bit. It was still growth, but it was starting to level off at like 2014, 2015. But I think it's at the point where it's like there's only so many people that are going to be buying Legos. I think they expected growth to still be happening. So maybe they just tried to expand too fast, and now they have to cut back a little bit. That way they can prep themselves for the next 5 years, 10 years, so they can keep on growing as a company. So I don't think Lego's in trouble. Lego's not going out of business. Sales may be down, but I don't think that's a bad thing for Lego. They've just made so much money over the past several years. Anyways, that's about it. There's not enough information on the Toys R Us situation to give you a full update, but I'll probably have that update by the end of December or January. And if anything, if it is big, like Toys R Us completely going out of business, you'll probably hear that from other sources, and I'll throw in my 2 cents on that, on what happened, why, and what I think. But this isn't like necessarily a huge fall apart for all the toy companies or toy producers. I don't think that's the case. I think it's just Mattel and Toys R Us are struggling. So don't think that there's going to be a toy economic crisis at the moment. I don't think that's the case. I really don't think that's the case. One way or other, we'll see what happens at the end of this holiday Christmas season. In the meantime, I'm going to go take a break, and let's cue that bumper music. What am I going to be covering when I get back? I'm going to be covering the Video Game Award winners and my thoughts on it. Ooh, that probably could be good or bad. And get ready for the IGN News of the Week, and maybe some other special news of the week when I get back here on the Sensei Pongcast. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, it's stopping this year. Oh, that's 'cause last Christmas I gave you my dog. The very next day he was dead on my lawn. This year, to save me from fear, I've signed restraining orders. Oh, you know it. Last Christmas, it seemed to go fast, but 2 weeks before, you got me in a late cast. This year, oh, I now see the light. Hitting me with your car, it wasn't an accident. Seriously, what's wrong with you? And welcome back from that break. I say break where it may seem a little misleading because it may seem like I've only been gone for maybe like a few minutes, maybe 15 minutes at the longest, 20 minutes, 30-minute lunch, I don't know, whatever you want to say. But in all reality, I've been gone for about 6 hours. But that's fine. It's radio and pre-recorded editing magic. Beautiful. Let's begin. Now, while I was at work, I was thinking to myself, oh, what was I thinking? I had this all in my head, and it all made sense. Man, these notes are a little out of date. I still can't... My notes suck. But I was thinking to myself, okay, I didn't really go into good detail about the net neutrality thing. I didn't go into good detail about the EA situation with the loot boxes. And I was listening to the newest episode of the VGS Cast, which is a video game show. Another pretty good podcast you should listen to if you enjoy podcasts. I would say it's definitely some people's cup of tea if they're into a bigger group dynamic with a lot of joking around. Though it's not for everyone's cup of tea, because I do know a few people out there that really enjoy a more low-key podcast where it's like maybe one or two people. Like I know someone personally that, likes everybody that's on the co-optional podcast, but because that there's 3 people plus a guest, they're like, it's a bit much for me. There's too many people talking at the same time. And I can understand that. I like all podcasts. Well, not all podcasts, but I like most podcasts out there. So, I listen to a lot of different things. So, it's just, it's not even so much like, what am I in the mood for? It's just, for some reason, for me personally, podcasts are like the most consumed form of entertainment at the moment, and most consumed form of media. And that's kind of weird. I'm going on a tangent. I was going to say something about like not being that big on talk radio unless it was like coast to coast, because coast to coast is fun. Which, if you all don't know coast to coast, coast to coast is sometimes pretty hilarious, sometimes intriguing, but take everything with a grain of salt. They cover everything from, like science, politics, sociology, but also conspiracy theories, UFOs, alternate history stuff, and all sorts of crazy things. All sorts of crazy stuff that, you don't have to believe in everything that they're saying, because sometimes they really do get some crackpots on that show, but that's part of the fun, because it's like, because George Norrie, the main host, does a pretty good job with being an interviewer. He doesn't necessarily feed the fuel to a flame or a fire when someone gets, into whatever they're talking about. He wants that, I think. I would, personally think, because, if someone's going really deep into the belief of, like, crystal magic, he wants them to really explain everything so the listeners can understand what they're trying to say. Does he believe everything that everybody on there says? No, of course not. I highly doubt that. But he's not going to be rude. I'm not even sure if he's truly open-minded, but he's a very, like, polite host. He's an awesome host. Sometimes kind of funny. No, okay, no, not so much. It's more just entertaining to listen to the different people from different fields of study, regardless of what you think of that study or that belief or whatever. Because he does get some crazy people on there sometimes. The call-ins are always good. Definitely when he has open lines. Anywho. So, I wanted to talk a little bit back on the Battlefront 2 with the Star Wars and the EA thing. Now, my feelings on loot boxes hasn't ever really changed. And oh, what I was saying, man, that was a tangent and a half. How long did I? I rambled for about 5 minutes about something, listening to things. That's what it was. I do like audiobooks. Audiobooks are nice because sometimes they're very soothing. But anywho, what was that? Alright, I got it. My head is clear. Yeah, VGS was talking about like one person was saying that they were listening to a lot of podcasts where sometimes people don't understand the difference between loot boxes and what's going on with all that. And I just want to be sure to clarify, y'all know what a loot box is versus a loot crate. Loot Crate is the company. Loot Crate are those things that those unboxing channels really dig because it's unboxing videos get a decent amount of views, and depending on who the host is, it can be actually relatively entertaining. Like one of my most favorite unboxers is Ashens. I don't even really watch unboxings, but I will watch an Ashens video because Ashens is hilarious. I love Ashens. He's great. He's great at what he does. And actually, something fun that you should look into if you enjoy unboxing and random surprise boxes and stuff. Every December, he has his Advent calendar special with another YouTuber, Dan, aka Nerd Cubed, where they open up Advent calendars or what they think would be crappy Advent calendars. And this year, they're opening 4 different ones. I won't spoil it. It's pretty good. It's pretty funny. Their dynamic is great. Let's go check that out. The Crap Vent calendar, I think is what they call it, the Crap Vent calendar showdown this year, because they're like trying to find which one's the worst of them all. It's good stuff. What was I talking about? Yeah, Loot Crate. Loot Crates are the little surprise gift boxes that people subscribe to month to month. It costs us like a flat rate for certain, just a grab surprise box of different things with a theme. Like I can't think of anything off the top of my head. My wife used to get Loot Crates a while back. They were pretty cool. Mostly because, like, you might find 1 or 2 things that you'd like to keep for yourself, and then the other stuff would make for, like, awesome, just good gifts to give to other people if you're having a hard time giving out gifts or finding gifts for people, like birthdays or Christmas or whatever. Just fun little things. Or you can do what Ashens might do and resell it on eBay. Anywho, loot boxes, on the other hand. Loot box, Loot Crate. Now I've got myself confused. What the balls? Yes, Loot Crate is the company. Loot box. Okay, that's good. It's way too late. I need to drink my coffee. All right, there we go. I got my brain juice back in my body. It sounds gross. So what do I think of loot boxes? I believe I've already explained this before on the podcast, but I don't necessarily have a full hatred towards them. They're not necessarily bad. I really think it just depends on the game and the business model of the game. So, like, maybe if you have, also, what's inside the boxes? Why are you doing the boxes in the first place? Now, obviously, something like Overwatch. That's a good example of loot boxes done pretty good, right? So, loot boxes in Overwatch aren't necessarily shady, or like the more loot boxes you buy or get in game or whatever isn't going to give you a competitive edge in multi. All it really is different skins. It's things that people like aesthetically about the game, or if someone wants to customize something about their game, their gameplay, or they want to be known as blah 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 blah, or they want their character to look like blah 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 blah. If that makes sense. I have nothing wrong with that. Would I necessarily spend a bunch of money on a little loot box in Overwatch? Nah, not really. Probably no, probably not, because I'm pretty frugal as it is and pretty cheap. Now, something like, let's say Hearthstone, I can kind of see an issue with that. I kind of have an issue with that because the only way to get complete a full set, if you're into that, and a lot of people are, if you want to get the best decks available, that you can build on your own, you're going to have to be buying a lot of them packs. And those packs are random. So, chances are you might get something crappy, you might get something good, you don't know. It's just, chances are, if you spend more and more and more and more and more money, chances are you're going to get the good cards. And then that means you can build the good decks. So really, what it boils down to is the kid that's, playing off his parents' computer doesn't have the money. They're not going to do well. But the other kid that is getting, let's say, this is a huge allowance, but like $50 allowance every week, they could just go ahead and spend $50 a week, or $100 a week for the one like hardcore person that's really whaling the system and being like just throwing money at Blizzard. Because with those kind of games, you can end up spending so much money just in microtransactions over time. So the one person that spent like maybe $1,000, $2,000 in game is probably going to have all the good cards, whereas the one person that didn't spend a dime probably doesn't have anything good. Or even if they just only spent like $60, $100. Where it gets bad is where it's an obvious pay-to-win situation, where it's like Battlefront 2. Yes, this is a quick edit because I accidentally said Battlefield, which is a different game. I'm sorry. Okay, either you can grind it out and unlock all the good characters, or you can simply pay a fee to get those characters. And that's where a lot of people had the issue with. And I can see that too. I find it shady. I don't really like it. There was also, in Shadows of War 2, the progression system is apparently loot-based. So it's just that, correct me if I'm wrong, please, because I don't like the sound of that. That sounds like it's not based off the merit of the player. It's just based off how many loot boxes can you get. And you've already paid $60 for the game. Let's make you pay another $60 so you can buy more loot boxes so you can progress faster. I don't like that. I'd rather have a game reward you for the benefit of your skill on the game. And I understand that games are getting expensive to make. Definitely if you want like the highest quality graphics with the highest quality writers, highest quality voiceovers, that obviously that's going to get expensive. I understand that. But at the same time, you got to find that good balance, and EA is bad at balancing their games. They just are. They don't really put the effort into it these days. They just want that money. And look, I stopped buying EA games a while back. Maybe like, I want to say the last EA game I actually bought was I think it was more recent than I think. May have been like 4 or 3 years ago, but that's only because I was buying PopCap games, like the old classic ones, because I was getting all worried because I was thinking to myself, well, PopCap's is going to go out of business, and there's a chance. Well, look, I've ranted on PopCap before, and they've got bought out by EA, and I was like thinking to myself, this is before everybody else was like, oh, I hate EA. I already hated EA at that point because of different things like Westwood Studios. But so like I was thinking to myself, well, PopCap one of two things will happen. Either EA, on the best chance, in the best case scenario, PopCap will receive lots of money from EA in support for making awesome casual games or puzzle games or whatever you want to call what PopCap makes, and come out with more stuff. Which wasn't the case. They made Bejeweled Stars. They made Plants vs. Zombies 2 free to play and pay to win, and kicked off the original designer. So, yeah, PopCap's on the chopping block. Sad to say. At least that's what it looks like to me. So, I figured, okay, let's buy the PopCap games before they disappear, because I've seen a lot of PopCap games disappear, like Mummy Maze. I love that game. Mummy Maze is awesome. Only way you can get it now these days is maybe go to the PopCap website. I haven't been there in years, but I don't know. It's a sad case for almost all their IPs. Let's move on though. Let's move on. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what plays out, because the backlash was pretty bad. A lot of journalist sites were kind of painting, the backlash as like overreacting. But I guess that backlash was big enough for, I want to say it was Belgium. Belgium's government is now looking into it as a form of gambling for kids, which it basically kind of is. Which goes back to the joke I said before the break. Can't believe it's not gambling. So I'm pretty sure you can get what my feelings are on the whole situation. Do I necessarily care? No, I stopped caring about EA years ago. What I would like to see is them sell off their IPs to companies that will make a good game. So that's what I would like to see. Because if EA was actually truly good at making games, they would make things work on systems they didn't really care about. They would make it work. It's up to the gumption of EA to even care about whatever they're porting their stuff to. And you can probably guess I'm mainly looking at the Switch here. Well, this is 2K now we're talking about, but 2K like WWE. You know, the wrestling game that came out. Because I guess it's janky as all crap. I wasn't going to buy 2K18 for the Switch anyways. Because I don't trust anything that's ported over to Nintendo. I can't trust the devs to make a solid running game. I just don't. Until they actually come out with something that runs well, I might actually buy it. But if they don't know how to program on a system, I'm not going to bother with it. Oh, what was the other thing? What was some fun stuff? I found? Oh, that's right. China is now getting Wii games ported to the NVIDIA Shield. So, good for them. That's kind of cool. What does this necessarily mean? This could mean several different things. So, a little bit of history if you don't know what China's situation is. China, for the longest time, has been a communist, closed economy, closed government, closed society, closed country in terms of imports, what kind of influences come into the country. So for the longest time, a lot of stuff has been banned in China. So, they wouldn't be able to get the Xbox. They wouldn't be able to get, a bunch of American movies. As of recently, with, I want to say it's mostly with Hong Kong being given back to China. I forget who it was. Someone had said something quite fascinating. Hong Kong, this is all going back to China in the next 10 years. This was 10 years before the deal. Years, and then it'd be given back to China. Now the thing was, he had said one of two things will happen: either China will take over Hong Kong, or Hong Kong will take over China. And from what it looks like, Hong Kong is taking over China, and that's a good thing, because Hong Kong, under the rule of the British government, had stayed capitalist and not in a controlled economy. So, regardless of what your beliefs are on capitalism, it's overall a good thing because it gives freedom. Gives freedom and gives ingenuity. It gives competition to different businesses. It's that sort of stuff. So, what's been going down? I'm assuming China looked at Hong Kong and was like, well, dang, your economy's booming. Our economy's still in the Middle Ages in most of China. So, what are we to do? Let's try to incorporate that. So, within the past maybe 20 years at this point, maybe flood the market, because that might actually, I don't know enough about economics, but just suddenly opening the floodgates to the rest of the world doesn't seem like the smartest idea. You kind of want to ease it in. That's kind of the thing. That way they can still kind of help create their own economy, their own industries and whatever, but along with that, bring in new ideas from the rest of the world. One company that has been pretty good on China's back has actually been Nintendo. Nintendo understands that, like many companies out there right now, understands that China has a huge market, untapped market. And that's basically why, Hollywood has been pumping out Transformers movies. No, they're not doing that well these days in the States, but the States don't matter anymore in terms of Hollywood. It's the overseas money that matters. The Transformers movies are doing super well in China at the moment. So they're going to keep on making Transformers movies, regardless of whether or not you think that's a good thing or a bad thing. So, because their market's eating it up, that's what's pushing it. That's where the market influence comes in. Nintendo understands this. They want to try to put their foot in China so they can actually create a healthy video game market there. I forget exactly what it was called, but back in the late 90s or something like that, there was this plug-and-play system that Nintendo did give to China. It was the only thing that the Chinese market would allow. and it was basically this plug-and-play N64 that had 5 games on it, I believe. It had Super Mario 64, I want to say Ocarina of Time, maybe something else. I don't remember what, but it had a few other games on it. But that's one way they were able to market China and keep it in China's control, because at that time they still wanted to have, full control of what was coming in, but they still wanted to slowly open up. So, what does this mean? Wii games being ported to the Nvidia Shield. Wii games are now being made for China for the Nvidia Shield. This could mean that Nintendo is looking at their past Wii games for development on older systems, or as, let's say, possibly a virtual console. This could be cool. I wouldn't, and from what it seemed like, there was no motion controls on some of that stuff. So, what does that mean? Maybe it's coming to the Switch? That should be interesting. Just something to keep track of. I don't know what's going to play out. It's too hard to tell, too early. What was something else that I found out? I think I got this from a VGS podcast tonight, because this is a recent text to myself on the notes. Tarantino is apparently doing the new Star Trek movie? Say what? Okay, as a Trekkie, like old school Trekkie. Not this new, like, J.J. Abrams verse stuff. Though I can understand why the new Star Trek movies are fun to watch. They are fun to watch, but they're just popcorn stuff. It's not. It's more Star Wars than Star Trek, because it doesn't have the heady engagement that most Star Trek does. So in that sense, yeah, they're fun, but I don't hate them like some Star Trek fans, but I don't love them like some. I think they're okay. It's popcorn entertainment. I'm the worst person to talk to about movie advice, because I think my tastes in movies are pretty garbage. So, yeah. And I think also at the same time, I haven't rewatched the new Star Wars movies as of recent. But that's mostly because after about like a few months of watching it the first time or second time on a few of the movies, I was feeling the same feelings I had after watching like The Phantom Menace. That Phantom Menace syndrome of being like, well, I had fun. I think they're good. Maybe. But, let's move on. What do I think of Tarantino doing a Star Trek? Does he really feel like Star Trek? I don't know. Look, I like Tarantino. I love Tarantino. His stuff is pretty good. Some of his stuff is excellent. I wouldn't say I like all his movies, but I don't think none of them are terrible. I think it'd be interesting to see what happens, is what I'm trying to get at. Because when as a old-time Star Trek fan, when I think Star Trek, I think of dialogue and storylines that tend to be more reflective, things that aren't necessarily about the action. Because, let's face it, Star Trek isn't really about the action. It's about human growth. It's about character progression, character struggle, and sometimes a mystery is involved. Sometimes kind of a Twilight Zone-y Doctor Who spin is involved. Things like that. I don't want to see a Star Wars sequence in my Star Trek, nor do I want to see a Star Trek sequence in my Star Wars. I'm not saying Star Wars is garbage. I'm not saying I think Trek is better than Star Wars. It just really depends on what am I in the mood for. Because I like both about equally. Maybe Star Trek more, but I still love Star Wars. Now, Tarantino and Star Trek, not necessarily excited. I think that's where I'm going on this. I don't think I'm excited for this. I'll need to look into it more, but as of right now, it's, I'm not exactly sure what to think. I'll give him a shot. Hopefully he knows what he's doing. I wouldn't be surprised if he does. It is Tarantino. We can trust him on that. I just have this terrible feeling that blood is going to be splattered everywhere, F-bombs will be dropped, and at some point, maybe Scotty and Kirk will open up a trunk, and the camera will be in the trunk, facing up at them, and that's the cinematic shot we're going to be getting. I just feel like it's going to feel too much like a Tarantino movie, and not enough like a Star Trek. I think that's where I'm going at. Do y'all understand? A little worried? but very interested to see what happens, because this could be amazing. I don't know. I am excited that it's not J.J. Abrams. That's cool. But one thing that was mentioned was that Patrick Stewart, the guy that played, if y'all don't know who Patrick Stewart is, he was the guy that played Jean-Luc Picard in Next Generation. Suddenly I can't think of anything off the top of my head that he's done. He's done a lot of stuff. But Patrick Stewart did say he would love to do a Star Trek movie with Tarantino if he wants Jean-Luc Picard in there. I'd be way down for that. That'd be so cool to see. Just because Patrick Stewart is down for doing a movie with Tarantino because apparently he's always wanted to work with Tarantino. I'm more on the side of saying let Tarantino make a movie and put Picard in it because I want to see Patrick Stewart again as Jean-Luc Picard, because that would be awesome. Maybe it was also help Tarantino out with the feel of what Star Trek is, because Patrick Stewart obviously has the chops and the experience in making Star Trek episodes with Next Generation. That'd be cool. Anyways, that's about it. Oh, one last thing. I don't think I mentioned it before the break, but apparently Mega Man 11 is coming out. That's not the newest of news, but Mega Man 11 is coming out, and I'm pretty excited. A lot of people are saying this is the Mighty Number 9 that we should have gotten, or a lot of people are saying this is Mighty Number 9 if it looked and played better. So I don't have any beefs with Capcom at this point in terms of trying to come out with another Mega Man, because at least they're trying again, and I'm going to be as supportive as possible for Capcom with that. Definitely, if this game plays like a Mega Man and plays well, maybe introduces a new thing or two, maybe, I don't really care. I just want a solid Mega Man title. That'd be fun. It is coming out to the Xbox One, PS4, and the Switch. And apparently, also in Mega Man news, Mega Man Legacy Collection 1 and 2 will be coming to the Switch as well, so be on the lookout for that. It is certain that I will probably get them all, because I'm kind of a Mega Man fanboy. Mega Man was easily maybe one of the first video game characters I fell in love with as a kid, mostly because my dad had the PC version of Mega Man. So, yeah, it's not the best game ever, definitely not the best Mega Man game ever, but it was still fun. Loved Mega Man. Owned a Mega Man game before I owned a Mario game. Anyways, that's about it with my Ketchup notes. What else did I want to talk about? Oh, video game awards. Let's go over that real quick. There it is. Ha! Alright, so people are like, man, Nintendo did a clean sweep. Not really surprised. There was a lot of Nintendo love this year, and I'm not going to be tooting my own horn here, but I did say that the Switch was going to do well. It was going to do incredibly well. People are saying that it's probably going to outsell the Wii U in its first year. Who was one of the only people that said that? That was me on my channel. Not on the podcast, but on my channel. So you know I was serious about that. I said I predicted anywhere in between 13 to 19 million sales in the first year. Now, 19 would be really pushing it, but it's already sold 10 million at this point. So, I don't know. It might happen. It might happen. It really depends on this Christmas. I'm really banking on that Christmas sale. But who said it was going to outsell the Wii U? It was me. I'm holding out my hands and gloating, but let me do this. I have very few moments where I can gloat. Please let me gloat. Anyways, let's go over the winners of the Game Awards of 2017 and what I think. Game of the Year, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Do I think Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild was deserving of winning that? Yeah. There was some hard competition this year, so I wouldn't have been surprised or upset if anything else won it. But I can understand why people were all being like, yay, Breath of the Wild is the best game ever. I understand. Not a huge fan of open world games, but I am a fan of Zelda, so I did like the change of pace. I personally like the change of pace. I even actually like the durability system of all things. I had my other beefs with the game, but it is what it is. I liked it. I think I was giving it like an 8.5 or a 9. I don't remember what. I'm going to say it's like 8.5 or 9 out of 10 still. So what is my game of the year? What is my personal game of the year? I haven't been able to play too much of Super Mario Odyssey because of my thumb, and was kind of holding off because I was like, well, let's hold it off for the book club, because that would make a fun book club game. So I haven't actually beaten it. I've also, when I do play, I when I finally got to the second world, I just started like exploring and side questing everywhere, because that game has so much to do in such a packed little tight box. It's so freaking awesome. I love Odyssey. I think I might actually like Odyssey once I'm completely through with it, and maybe more than Breath of the Wild. I don't know. We'll have to see. I do want to get that Breath of the Wild DLC that also dropped. If you didn't know about that, the second pack of DLC did come out. So if you got that $20 season pass, which actually, considering other season pass prices, isn't bad at all. It's on the cheap end, honestly, because like season passes are usually like $30, right? I've seen like some season passes being like 50. So, season pass for Breath of the Wild wasn't that bad. But if you're into that, if you like Breath of the Wild, I might actually recommend getting the whole DLC pack, because it looks pretty cool from what I've seen, from what I heard. It's an expansion on the storyline. You got to beat the game, and then there's an after game story that goes on after that. So that's what the DLC is. That's what the expansion is. There's also the Heroes challenge, and then there's also the hard mode, which should have come with the game. Not gonna lie, I'm gonna say that. But extra $20, it's not that bad of a deal. Probably adds a whole bunch of hours to your gameplay as well, and a whole bunch of extra stuff you can do. So that's cool. I like expansion packs, mostly because I'm kind of an old PC gamer, mostly with Civilization. So expansion packs don't really hurt me personally, as some people do. Even though this is a console, and let's get over it for a second and be like, okay, if they're expanding the content, it's probably takes some time, so I don't mind throwing a couple extra bucks to a game I love. Know what I mean? Yeah. So, yeah, I could see Breath of the Wild being Game of the Year. That's what I'm saying. Best game direction, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I can't really complain with that. It's a cool spin, and it worked. Best narrative, What Remains of Edith Finch. Now, I didn't actually play this game, but I've heard a lot of good stuff, and I've heard some reviews, and a lot of people are saying, go play it if you love this kind of stuff. Not a huge fan of walking simulators. I've always actually wanted to, I understand the appeal, and I'm sure there's some walking simulators out there that I'd probably really enjoy, but I'm more about, strategy and action. I like my strategy games, like Civilization. I like my strategy games like StarCraft and MOBAs and all that kind of stuff. But I also like my action-y arcade titles. So I do like RPGs as well. I like puzzle games as well. But that's not the point. It's just not necessarily my cup of tea. But from everything that I've heard, I can understand this. Can I think of anything off the top of my head from this year that has a better narrative? No. Best art direction goes to Cuphead. I could see that. I don't know. I don't have any issue with this. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. I don't really care about award ceremonies, but I'm happy to see Cuphead on here for something. Best score music, Nier Automata, or how Super Bunny Hop likes to call it, Nier Tomato. Sure. Never played it. I just for this podcast, I did look up some of the music, and it's good music. Does it fit with the game? I don't know. I never played it. Best audio design, Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. This was the game that I think that had the main character was suffering from schizophrenia, so you'd get voices in your head, and it might have been in VR, which I can see as both either the most immersive, awesome experience or just terrifying experience, depending on the person. So yeah, I could see that. Yeah, a game like that would have to have good audio design. When I think of audio design, one of two things either goes on. Something mechanically like Hellblade, where the audio plays such a huge role, or maybe something else where it's the audio adds so much charm or personality to the environment that you're working in. So something maybe like, I know it'll never win audio design, but let's use Super Mario Odyssey or Super Mario 64 as an example. The audio design needs to be spot on with what people would expect. So every time Mario jumps, it's got to make that boing, boing, boing sound. And every time he does a ground stomp, like a butt stomp, ground pound, that's what it's called, ground pound. It's got to make that certain oomph sound that feels like a Mario game. If it's making any other kind of oomph, it may not feel right, and you won't know why until you like really think about the sound, and you're like, oh, they should have used something else. This sounds like garbage. You know, that's what I usually think of audio design. Like, what are the sound effects, and does it mesh well with the game? And what do I think? I don't know. Sure, Hellblade, best performance. I can't read. Melina Jurgens for Hellblade. Sure. Games for Impact. Hellblade. Again. Senua's Sacrifice. Sure. Best ongoing game. Overwatch. Sure. Best handheld game. Metroid Samus Returns. Sure. Best VR AR game. Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Now, I might have to actually completely agree with this one, only because, look, I don't have a VR headset. Well, I technically do, but it's a cheap Android Gear thing, but so it doesn't really count, which at some point I need to set up my Virtual Boy emulator on there so I can play Virtual Boy games and be hip with the kids with my VR. Yes, Virtual Boy. I hear Wario on Virtual Boy is really good. Since I listen to a lot of news podcasts on gaming and a lot of gaming opinions out there, varying degrees. Like if I were to like list off all the